Hi, Shannon. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Rebecca, thanks for having me.
So we are here with Shannon Watts, who is the founder of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense America, and we are here to celebrate her because of her amazing movement that she started and the exciting news that she's our AD16 Woman of the Year. So let me tell you a little about Shannon and why we chose her. Shannon is a mother of 5 and the founder of the nation's largest grassroots group fighting against gun violence, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Prior to founding Moms Demand Action, Shannon was a stay-at-home mom and former communications executive at a Fortune 100 company. The day after the Sandy Hook tragedy, Watts started a Facebook group to unite women against the gun lobby, as Mothers Against Drunk Driving had united mothers against the alcohol lobby in the 1980s. This online conversation turned into a grassroots movement with a chapter in every state, and together with its partner, Every Town for Gun Safety, has nearly 6 million supporters, including me. For the last 5 years, Moms Demand Action volunteers have stopped the NRA priority legislation in state houses more than 90% of the time. That is a phenomenal win record, Shannon.
Thank you.
In addition to her work with Moms Demand Action, Watts is an active board member of Emerge America, one of the nation's leading organizations for recruiting and training women to run for office, again, including me. So Shannon and I have a lot in common. In 2018, Watts was named as one of People's 25 Women Changing the World, and InStyle named her as one of the 2018 Badass Women. And this year, we are excited to give her AD16 Woman of the Year recognition. So Shannon, thanks for joining us. I'm glad to have a little conversation, even if virtually.
No, thank you so much. And, I just want to say that, you talked about the work I've done as a mom, and then with Emerge and Moms Demand Action. And you are really the shining example of how women who are activists and engaged in their communities, as you have been with Moms Demand Action, move from not just shaping policy, but to actually making it. My kids were the same age as your kids when I started Moms Demand Action now almost 8 years ago. And I'm just so grateful to you and to all of the volunteers across the country who make this organization successful. I'm very honored to receive this, but as you know, it isn't for me, it's for all of the people who make this organization go every single day and who invest so much into what I call the unglamorous heavy lifting of grassroots activism. And I'm sure that you have days where you feel like that's the same work you're doing in the state house as you did as an activist. And that's really what it's all about, is sticking with it, keep going no matter what happens, and stay focused on helping other people. So I'm incredibly honored to receive this award from you.
Yes, well, I wish I could give it to every woman who is volunteering with Moms Demand Action. They're phenomenal.
You did.
I did. There we go. The first time I walked into my local chapter, Tri-Valley Moms Demand Action, for a meeting, and it was before I considered running for office, and I really felt at home. I felt like I'd found people who had shared my passion in protecting our children and really creating a movement around what it means to have safe policies for gun violence prevention. And, you gave all of us a home for that advocacy. So thank you for that. So it was exciting to find out recently that you had moved to our district and you're one of my newest constituents. So how has it been living in AD16? Tell our fellow constituents.
Well, I love it here. We moved here from Boulder after my son graduated from high school, and my husband runs a company in the area, and we absolutely love it. First of all, I have to say I love not having any snow or winter. It's wonderful to have sunshine, even in the depths of what would normally be winter. And the people are fantastic. The community is wonderful. You and I think we're last together at the Women's March here in the area. And I'm just so impressed by the volunteers that we have at Moms Demand Action, but also just the community seems very active in general around a variety of issues. And so that feels like home to me.
Yeah, no, we have a phenomenal community that they find their place and they get out and do it. And I think we're seeing that now more than ever with what's going on with our shelter in place and the coronavirus. We're seeing the community really come together to support our neighbors and support our vulnerable communities. So you're right. It's an honor to live here and an honor to represent everybody. So it's widely known that it was the tragedy at Sandy Hook that prompted you to found Moms Demand Action. Why was motherhood at the center of the movement that you founded?
I get asked that a lot. Why not parents demand action or women demand action? And for me, it was this idea of use your motherhood as a tool or it will be used against you, right?
Yeah.
Um, we are underrepresented, and women in particular are underrepresented in state houses and in boardrooms. And as the saying goes, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu. And that's been the case with gun violence in this country. Women are uh, over 21 times more likely to be shot and killed than their peers in high income countries. So this is an issue that's very important to so many women and moms in this country. And until we're equally represented in state houses and boardrooms, it's going to stay moms demand action. We're not just women, we're not just moms, we're mothers and others now, but really it's been women who do everything in this organization soup to nuts. And yes, that means you're gonna set up chairs and make snacks, but you'll also get to set the strategy and be in the spotlight. And to me, that we really need more organizations like that where women are allowed to lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's interesting because, like you said, women are underrepresented everywhere, including the legislature. We are now at our historic high in the California State Legislature of women. And when I joined, several mothers joined with me, and we really impact the conversation in different ways. And it's not to say, as you mentioned, every voice is important, but moms bring a different perspective, and that perspective is important. And I think in this movement, especially. So as a fellow mother, I appreciate that. But I've been in many meetings with others there as well. So happy that they're a part of this as well. So one of the things that the group is known for, and I sit on the Public Safety Committee in the legislature, so I get to see it often, is moms showing up in their red shirts to advocate for policy in legislatures across the country. But this year, on your Advocacy Day, you couldn't come. We had already moved to a shelter in place in small ways by the time Advocacy Day came. And you this year did a virtual Advocacy Day, which I had the privilege of participating in. How did it go?
It was amazing. It was our first ever virtual Advocacy Day. We had about 800 people who had RSVP'd to show up at the State House. And what happened was that even more people were able to get involved. People who either, financially or because of other priorities in their lives or work, or they were too far away, couldn't get to the State House in Sacramento. And, I think what we're experiencing right now is really the way of the future, which is that we are going to do more things online, and that advocacy is one of those things. And it just went to show that day that you can be an advocate from your house. Even if you have only a certain amount of time, you can use technologies and tools to be the same activist you would be in person. Do I wish we could have had the photo op of all of our red shirts standing on the stairs in Sacramento? Yes, I do. But we also had photos. We had a photo of our meeting with you on Zoom, and we had many calls, and I spoke with Jen Newsom, and it was a great day that lasted from 8 to 5, just like an advocacy day would have. And I really think at the end of the day, more people were able to participate because it was virtual.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great, and I thought it was just as effective. And right now we know that domestic violence is on the rise with people being at home more, and we know there are lines out the door at gun shops across the state. And so it's an important time to be continuing the work of educating people on safe storage and some of the other critical things that Moms Demand does. So glad that the inability to be in person didn't stop you guys. And I enjoyed my meeting and all the people. And I think I got to meet with more people than I usually do.
Exactly.
I had about 15 and people from San Francisco and
Yep.
Oakland, so I enjoyed it. I think you're right. I think that it will change the way we communicate and give voice to people who don't usually have it. It's a privilege to be able to show up on a work day at the CAFI committee. And the more that we open our doors to people who don't have that privilege, I think the better off our state will be. So hopefully this is the way of the future. So you have weighed into an industry that is predominantly male dominated, both the gun industry and politics. How do you approach being a woman in such a male-dominated space?
It has been very interesting. The threats of death and sexual violence started immediately when I started my Facebook page. There was this underbelly of America I honestly didn't know existed. And I had to decide early on if I was going to back down or double down. And my personality is to get really angry when people tell me to sit down and be quiet. And I wish the gun extremists had realized that. If they had ignored me, I might have been more scared than taking me on. every step of the way, I've just decided to make those threats like background noise. I don't even pay attention to them. I don't care about them. We don't have to convince a vocal minority of gun extremists to support us or to vote the way we're voting. We just have to convince what has been a silent majority for a long time, and they're not silent anymore. Moms Demand Action volunteers have ensured that the country is paying attention to this issue, that they're voting on this issue, and that they're demanding that their lawmakers act on this issue. And that has completely changed the game. I really believe the NRA's worst nightmare was that women would organize against them. They would rise up. And that's exactly what we did after the Sandy Hook school shooting. You know, I should mention that I am a white suburban mom, and I had the privilege of being a stay-at-home mom, not realizing that it's just not school shootings or even mass shootings that make the news that are the gun violence in this country that's tearing apart the fabric of our communities. It's daily gun violence, whether it's gun homicides, gun suicides in city centers and rural communities, unintentional shootings, domestic gun violence. 100 Americans are shot and killed every day, about 40,000 a year. And so we have to care about all of the gun violence that happens in this country and work to fix all of it, not just what we see on the news. And that has been a real awakening for me, and I think a lot of our volunteers. It took us too long to get here, but we're here now.
Yeah, and I mean, to your credit, the priority of Moms Demand Action, both last year and this year in the California legislature, was the CalVIP funding, which is funding for violence intervention programs, which really focus on that gun violence in the inner city that you spoke about. That's so critical and takes up a predominant amount of those numbers that we hear about every day. So thank you for that focus, because the school shootings get the most attention, but we need to save all lives from gun violence. So, you know, I have the privilege in my role, and I'm sure you do as well, of meeting young women every day who want to get involved in activism, be it around climate change, gun violence prevention, their bodies, whatever it is. Do you have any advice for them about how to get started and how to make a difference?
I do. Well, first of all, I wrote a book called Fight Like a Mother, and you don't have to be a mother, but the proceeds go to gun violence prevention organizations. And the whole book is really about how I did this. So I always say it's part manual. It's part memoir, because I do talk about what it's been like to be the tip of the spear on an issue that can be polarizing. And it's also part manifesto. I put a call to action in there that you know, women really have a moral imperative in this country, especially right now, to run for office. We only hold about 20% of the 500,000 elected positions in this country. And it's why so often our issues are either ignored or exploited. And I think that every woman in particular, has a moral imperative to run. And I don't care if it's coroner, sheriff, school board, city council, state house. You don't have to run for Congress. Like, just pick something that you're passionate about and get involved and hold an elected position, because the power in this country has to look more like the people who actually live in this country. And obviously not just women, but people of color. But it is a strong call to action to all women to think about this like men do. You know, you can graduate from college and run for office. It can be your career. You don't have to wait until you're 47, which is the average age that women run for office in this country. You can do it right out of college or community college or even high school. Just think about getting involved and getting engaged.
I love that. I mean, I would love to be surrounded by more women. As an attorney and now politician, I've spent my career in rooms full of men as well.
What's the makeup of the state house in California?
So we're now at about 35%.
Okay.
When I started running, we were in the low 20s. So in the last 2 years, we've come a long way with some of the races that women have stepped up to run for. And we don't win unless.
Right.
So get out there, women. We got your back. And people have a lot of time right now, so they should
start your campaign.
Reading your book and starting a campaign. So what is one accomplishment? I always love when people ask me this question because I think it's so hard, so I'll ask you. What's one accomplishment that you're most proud of?
I think what I am most proud of is that we have passed now in 28 states legislation that disarms domestic abusers. Federal law has what we call a boyfriend loophole. So it's easy for prohibited purchasers to have access to guns, especially if They're stalkers or dating partners. They're not included in federal law under the domestic violence provision. And so we have to then go into each state house and get them to close that loophole, since Congress hasn't or won't. It's in VAWA, so if that passed, we would see that closed. But in the meantime, we're going state by state. And the fact that now, more than half the country lives in states where prohibited purchasers find it much harder to get access to guns, I know is saving lives. And I'm just so proud of our volunteers who have made that happen. It doesn't usually happen the first year. They have to show up year after year, month after month, hearing after hearing, and make it happen. And that's eventually how their hard work pays off.
Yeah, well, thank you for that work. I mean, I do think it's very clear that these laws are saving lives. And, it would be amazing if we could do it at the federal level, but if not, we'll go state by state and make a difference. So thank you.
In California, where you are a lawmaker, it's so important, because I always say Florida is the petri dish of the NRA, where they go in and try to pass bad laws and take them to the rest of the country. But California is where we pass good laws and take them out to the rest of the country. Some really innovative thinking has gone on in this state, and I'm just so grateful to have you sitting in the State House making sure it happens.
Yes, well, thank you. It was one of the reasons apparently I'm one of the few legislators to ever have requested a seat on the Public Safety Committee. But this was one of the issues that drove me to do that, because I wanted to have a seat at the table where the decisions were being made.
Exactly.
So happy to be there. Well, thank you, Shannon. It's so fun to honor you and to have you living here in our district and working alongside us for the safety of our communities. And I just want to thank you for all your work. And it is such an honor to be able to give you this award.
Well, on behalf of all our volunteers, including you, thank you so much for the award, and thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.